Hello and cheers, vinyl community. I'm Gary, and this is Physical Format Rock and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, what I would like to do is another rewind review, and this is where I just talk about an album that has been out in the past, and I just wanted to shed a little light on it. And today I wanted to talk about a band that I'm a big fan of, and I don't really hear them talked about a whole lot in the vinyl community. I've talked about them on this channel quite a few times, but anyway, what I'm talking about is UFO, and this is their 1975 album, Force It. Not Faucet, like you see all these faucets, but Force It. Actually, that's why they have all those faucets in there. It's kind of like a English thing, how they might say faucet, force it. Anyway, that's how they supposedly came up with the name. Now, this was the second album that the band did with Wunderkind, Michael Schenker, on guitar. This has the classic lineup of Phil Mogg on vocals, a highly underrated vocalist, I think, in the rock and roll world. It also has the late Pete Way on bass and Andy Parker on drums. Now, at this time, Paul Raymond was not yet in the band. So for this, they used Chick Churchill, who was the keyboard player from the band 10 years after, and he played keyboards on this. They decided to add keyboards to kind of help fill up their sound a little bit, and it works wonderfully on here. Now, Chick was from 10 years after, and he was brought in by Leo Lyons, who was the bass player in 10 years after and the producer of this album. Now, as you can see, this is the 2021 reissue that I actually have, in case you're wondering about that cover, because a lot of times in America, that's what the cover looked like. They kind of blurred out that objectionable picture there on the cover. Anyway, UFO were a bit of a volatile band as far as having arguments within the band, and they all like to do their share of partying and drinking and whatnot. The volatile part kind of comes from Phil Mogg and Michael Schenker not always seeing eye to eye, but working extremely well together. Phil Mogg and Pete Way were very much, they like to joke around a lot. You know, those cheeky Brits. And their humor was sometimes lost on Michael Schenker, who was German and, still learning the language a little bit. So I think sometimes the humor didn't necessarily go that way, and maybe that caused a little bit of friction. Of course, Andy Parker, he's just an easygoing, in the middle kind of guy. Speaking of Andy Parker, he decided to play double bass drum on a few songs on here, which was something different. Most notably on the killer opener, Let It Roll, off this album. You can definitely hear the bass drum on that. Now, some of the songs on this album were in their live set for years, and you can hear some of them naturally on the amazing live album Strangers in the Night, which was released in, I believe, in 79. It was from 78 concerts. The title tracks on, not the title tracks, I'm sorry. The track listing on here is Let It Roll, Shoot Shoot, another concert favorite, High Flyer, Love Love Love, Out in the Streets, another great one, Mother Mary, Too Much of Nothing, Dance Your Life Away, This Kids, which also has the instrumental part there, Between the Walls. This Kids, that's another great song. This, they were really firing on all gears when they made this album. This is fantastic. I know like I said, you don't hear a whole lot of people talking about it in the VC. But I mean, like if you are into, like Kiss, Dress to Kill, the original or the debut album from Ted Nugent, different bands like that around in the 70s, you have got to listen to some UFO. They're a hard melodic rock band, very influential. They influenced bands like Def Leppard and Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden to this day, uh, before they come on stage, they usually start playing the song Doctor Doctor over the speakers. So, they wear UFO on their sleeve. But this is, um, like I said, I feel like they're really, really on top of their game here. Pretty much every studio album that they released while Michael Schenker was in the band was great, and this one is no different. They are really coming into their own on this one. The songwriting is terrific. The thing about the UFO albums, they always have like some songs that are a little bit different than some of the others because they are definitely not just all hard rock or anything. Like the song High Flyer, which is the third song on here, is a much more mellow kind of song. It kind of goes back a little bit maybe to the first couple albums. They started out more like a kind of a space rock type band. And then by Phenomenon, they had honed in their sound, and then probably even more so with this album. But there aren't really any bad songs on this album. There might be some weaker ones than others, but this has so many killer ones, including the song Mother Mary, which to me, I match up that song with any of the classic songs from the 1970s. To me, that song should have been a much bigger hit than what it was. I mean, most rock fans are aware of it. If you haven't, please go listen to the song Mother Mary. But I think that's as good as anything that was put out in the 70s. This album is definitely solid. Now, if you want to get the 2021 reissue, it's terrific. It's pretty reasonably priced. It's got all this inside of it. The the sleeves are pretty cool because they look like recording notes from when this was recorded. It sounds really good. Phil Mogg sings a little bit higher on this than he does some of the other albums. You can definitely hear it. His voice lowers as time goes on, but he sounds wonderful on here. The band is on fire. The guitar playing is excellent. Michael Schenker, just one of the best out there, and it's amazing how good he sounded so young. The only thing about this that this particular reissue on vinyl is there was an extra song called "A Million Miles" that is on the CD reissue, but is not on the vinyl one. But what it does come with is a second LP. This is a double record set. And this is a live recording from 1975 at the record plant. It's on this clear vinyl, by the way. And it's a really good live recording. It is, it's a small crowd type thing. And you can just hear everything on there. Definitely a really good live recording. So, if you can spring a couple bucks to get the reissue, I would definitely recommend that. But, hey, if you just find the original album, the single album out in the bin somewhere, you got to pick it up. UFO Force It is a fantastic album. All the band members remember that album very fondly. Also, the making of it, probably also for the fact that there was a bar, I believe, in the studio, somewhere in the studio, that was open like 24 hours a day. So they said they spent a lot of time there too. But they recorded this thing in, I think, like 10 days. But it is, it's well polished without being over polished. It's just some great 70s rock and roll. So I highly recommend Force It by UFO because for one thing, it doesn't seem to be maybe the album that gets talked about quite as much. But why, I'm not sure, because it's a fantastic record. I just think that goes because of maybe some of the other records were a little more famous. or something like Lights Out is probably one of their more famous albums, but this one might be a little bit better than Lights Out. But anyway, UFO, Force It, just wanted to shed some light on that. 1975, fourth studio album from the amazing rock band UFO. Check it out. I'm Gary. This is Physical Format Rock and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until the next time, my friends, I will see you down the road.